Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I finally got my hands on ChatGPT Multimodal, or some of you who like to call it ChatGPT Vision. I've been playing with it for the past couple of days and I have to say the results are amazing. I'm so intrigued by it, but at the same time, I can't help feeling really scared because of how fast AI is growing, and with this multimodal update alone, it already has the potential to replace some of our jobs, including my own. So in today's video, we will explore thoroughly on what this multimodal ChatGPT can do. I will first run through some of these mind-blowing use cases that others have already tried. Then I will also share the results of some of my very own simple experiments. Lastly, I would like to also talk about how this is going to change and affect the playing field and why I'm so scared of this AI growth, and so should you. Without further ado, let's look at some of the creative use cases that others have done. Okay, so as you can see on my screen here, I'm on twitter.com. I'm looking at this post by Hussein. What he did is just by taking a screenshot of his landing page, right? So he has a video over here. I'm just going to quickly play it. So he attached the screenshot and he just simply asked ChatGPT, what is it, right? So ChatGPT, if I fast forward, was able to accurately pinpoint the brand name, the website, tagline, website sections, which is all the different pages from the navigation, right? And a little bit more information, right? So Hussein over here then continue to get it to generate more information on how to improve on his website, right? So ChatGPT was able to give him like a couple of tips on the design enhancements, content recommendations, and also on some of the UI UX stuff, right? Like usability improvements, right? So it mentions here about fast loading times, mobile optimization, and so on. So these are all like great tips for SEO as well. ChatGPT then continue to give it more tips on engaging elements like animations, interactive demos. So these are like really, I would say, basic but also very helpful tips, right? And then the feedback mechanism, which involves the community stuff like your live chat, your feedback form, and things like that. But the real mind-blowing stuff is what comes after. As you can see here, Hussein actually went on to ask for the code to create some of these user interface or these user experience elements like your chatbot, your buttons, your loading screen, and stuff like that, right? So ChatGPT was able to generate all the code on like the hover effects for the buttons, the sticky bar navigation, and the sticky bar navigation, and so on, right? So this is the part that I like to call out, right? With this alone, you will be able to create your own little plugins or components on your website just through a screenshot. So this is the great thing about this multimodal ChatGPT, right? Pietro, right? Another example here, also did the same thing. He just basically took a screenshot of a live website, okay? And he used this prompt, create this UI with incredible details, to not skip anything, write all the code in one HTML, and use Tailwind CSS for styling. So all you need to know is just some basic keywords like HTML or CSS, right? So these are the keywords that you need to use. On top of that, he also used things like use images for unsplash, right? And then take a deep breath, think step by step. So with this prompt alone, he was able to get ChatGPT to very quickly, within minutes, generate a full CSS, HTML to replicate or clone the website that he have just pasted in the screenshot, right? So the end results is just like that. You kind of like get the main user interface, all right? It is of course not as complete as what you see from the main website, but this is just done within minutes, right? So if you think about it, you can easily just clone other people's websites with just an image alone, just a screenshot, maybe from your phone or maybe even from like a screen grab, right? There are so many more other examples of how we can just create websites using sketches and drawings, right? So Aslan over here also did the exact same thing. He just did a sketch on how he wants his website to look like, and ChatGPT was able to create the code for it. Same for Mackay over here, who have drew on the whiteboard a process of how he wants a user to navigate through a series of actions. He created something like a lead gen form where it brings the lead to fill in the email, followed by the name, followed by the age, and there are some customized filtration that would bring the user to the website if he or she is over 18 years old, right? So it's more like to qualify his customers, right? He drew that in the whiteboard, take a screenshot, and he sent it into ChatGPT, right? And I can just play the video very quickly. So he just drew that, took a screenshot, and if you look at the replies, Mackay actually got ChatGPT to give him the code, right? And all he needs to do is just to cut and paste the code. This is the end result that he got, right? So the code that ChatGPT gave him actually worked, right? And if I were to fast forward, he's able to generate exactly what the flow he drew on the whiteboard. Yeah, which is pretty impressive, right? Of course, I will not dive in too much on this video. All these links will be in the description below and you can watch it for yourself, right? So McKay also went on to get ChatGPT to clone a SaaS dashboard where he just took a screenshot of it, of an existing SaaS dashboard, uploaded it, got ChatGPT to reprise the role of an UI UX expert, and then recreate and clone the entire SaaS dashboard out in code, right? So ChatGPT was able to give him the exact code and he was able to clone it out that looks something that's very close to the SaaS dashboard that he have uploaded, right? So it's really pretty impressive. Apart from that, Pietro again also did try out other things like uploading photos and getting Lightroom settings, right, to achieve the same kind of filter and color and tone of that uploaded image for his future editing. But like I said, whether it is right or wrong, whether it's hallucinating or not, I can't tell right at this point in time. But it is still very, very powerful. Okay. Apart from that, Peter Young over here also did a really cool thing, right? So he just tweeted the other day that he will never get a parking ticket again. So if you look at this image here, you know how these parking signs often will confuse you, right? Because they just add on one on top of the other and they really literally don't make any sense because the timing is just all over the place. So what he did here is just, he said, today is Wednesday at 4 p.m. Can I park at this spot? Right, tell me in one line. ChatGPT responded, yes, you're able to park for 1 hour starting from 4 p.m. So Peter Young here tried this prompt and it's really great, which inspired me and got me thinking maybe I can do one on translations, right? So I've done exactly that. I took one of the images from Google Images of this medication, right, in Japan. So over here, we are just testing out the accuracy of how ChatGPT can grab the words from the images, and it did a really good job, right? So it did what it's supposed to do. I asked it to translate and get it to tell me what the medication is for. So it took the word out based on this image alone. It's telling me like the name of the medication, the brand of it, and it did tell me like the dosage of the content, but it's not really convincing because some of these words, right, I don't really see it in the picture at all, right? So they might be hallucinating on some of these words and making some guesses. So I did see this 600 mg, but not the rest, right? So I zoom in a little bit, I boxed out the words in red box and I get it to translate those words for me, right? It did a pretty good job because it managed to see these two little fine print over here, and the first one actually mentioned that is ibuprofen. So profen is somewhat like a Panadol but with anti-inflammatory properties, I think. So at least I know that this will help me with my fever and pain, right? So it then also translate the second line but not the third line, right? I'm not sure why, but I wasn't satisfied with that, right? So I got it to also read to me what's the red color section over here. It did manage to do it. It says don't endure the pain, don't give up on pain, but I think this is somewhat not accurate because although yes, this little word here is pain in Chinese, but I don't see all the other characters in the first line. So of course, this is just an experiment. In real life situations, do consult the pharmacies, right? And not just, based on this. Okay, obviously this can be better prompt and then I can zoom in better because maybe of the different colors and stuff like that, they might not be able to pick out the word. That's it. This is just a very quick experiment, right? So we are just going to leave it as what it is. So I also did a couple of more other experiments. I went on to try out math questions, right? I tried many math questions. And again, I like to test AIs on, some of these elementary school questions that are very tricky that I can't solve myself. And I just took a screenshot of the entire question. Everything you see here is not in text, it's an image, right? So I tried it several times with different prompts as well. So we can just look at the one here. Honestly, all the questions they have given ChatGPT, they answer it wrongly. However, they are able to very accurately decipher what's in the image, right? Be it the text or be it even the shapes. There are obviously 4 triangles here and then there are 16 and then there are 9 over here. And so it was able to actually count those triangles, right? 16 triangles and then 10 of them are gray. So there are actually 10 gray triangles, right? So you can see that the AI is so intuitive that it's able to even count the number of triangles within this big triangle. And it is pretty accurate, except for I think the second one, they didn't count the gray correctly. Yeah, one of them is gray. So actually one of them is white, right? So yeah, even the colors, right? They do have some little bit of errors here and there, but they were still able to give me a somewhat accurate answer. Long story short, I'm just going to cut straight to the point. Probably need a little bit more hints in order to solve all these problems. But nonetheless, we are actually here to test out the image recognition, right? And it did a really fine job. So pretty much if you have an exam paper, you can just take a photograph of all the questions and it might be able to answer for you. Although, maybe the answer might be wrong. Moving forward, who knows? Maybe we can have like a persona, a math whiz, and can solve all kinds of problems. But I tried it here, it didn't work, right? So the answers are all wrong. But it did attempt to break down everything step by step and attempt to calculate everything in a very logical format. Apart from that, I also tested out chartings. Okay, so I went to TradingView, I took a screenshot of Microsoft stock prices. I get it to tell me what's the all-time high. It tells me here that it's approximately 380 USD. It's not very accurate because I think the picture is pretty zoomed out, right? But it's somewhere close, right? It's somewhere close to 380. It did say here approximately, so I would say it's a pass, right? I zoom in a little bit, I ask for the all-time high. It tells me it's 340, which is wrong also, but at the very least, it's still somewhere near, alright? But what comes next is the mind-blowing part. So I got it to draw support and resistance lines based on the charts. So for those of you who are not familiar with trading or looking at charts, support and resistance, they are basically important price levels where there are a lot of activity. So at these specific levels, right, which you are able to determine on the charts, are levels that have a higher probability of reversals or breakouts that can provide a user potential entry or exit opportunities, right? Which is why they are very important levels to look at and they are very easily to be plotted, but it can be quite a hassle because there might be many levels, right? So I get it to plot it for me. Unfortunately, it's not able to draw it out, but it gives me the price point. Right, so it tells me that the resistance is around $340, the support is around the 310 mark, and the $295 is another lower potential support. So I went on to TradingView and I plotted it out. And to my surprise, it's pretty accurate. Right, it's pretty good because this is roughly the support level, right? As you can see here, right, there's a gap up. So a gap up would also means that there is a potential support resistance that's being created or formed. And then over here, there are like several pivot points that touches onto the support line, so it forms another support, right? And over here, there were attempts to break out a certain level, but it failed, right? It failed over here. This second breakout took place, it happened, but it came back down, right? And then it tried to break out this level again, but it failed. So this is considered a resistance as well, right? So you can see that they are pretty good. It's rather impressive that they are able to plot out support and resistance levels, right? But of course, again, anything that ChatGPT provides, do take it with a pinch of salt, do your own due diligence. I wouldn't suggest that you get ChatGPT to tell you how to trade, but you can learn using ChatGPT. And now that you know they're able to plot accurately these important price levels, right, you can then get it to generate maybe even other things like strategies, which is exactly what I did, right? So I went on to ask it just for learning purpose, maybe tell me where is a good entry, right? So it gives me a couple of strategies. These are like pretty much very basic strategies. It didn't give me much detail to exactly like which price point I should go in, but I think you could easily just prompt it to get there, right? But sometimes you might get censored, right? I'm not sure because they're not supposed to give you financial advice. So maybe you can frame up your prompt from an educational point of view, right? Just like what I did over here, right? So yeah, it gave me the different strategies or different advice on where I should start looking at. And some of these are, I wouldn't say they are right or wrong because there's pretty much no right and wrong, but they are quite generic as well. But at least it's something, right? So you can always just continue prompting to get better answers, right? Okay, so that's it. That's for trading, which I'm pretty impressed by how they are able to base off the image and draw me support and resistance levels. Apart from that, I also spend quite a lot of time in recreating or cloning websites, just like what Pietro and Hossein has done. But I would have to say I was a little bit over ambitious and I'm just, trying out stuff. So I went to CoinMarketCap and I took a screenshot of CoinMarketCap and I get it to recreate the UI, right? Exactly the same prompt as what Pietro did. It gave me the HTML, I copy and paste it and it looks something like that. So it looks terrible, yes, but that's also because I was a little bit too ambitious. I use CoinMarketCap, which has a lot more features and a lot more moving parts, right? So they have different components and all these prices actually move in real time. Hence, a HTML will not cut it, right? It's not enough to actually create a website like that. And I maybe got too overly ambitious. I got it to create a React version of the same, based off the same screenshot. I get it to use React framework. So React framework, for those of you who do not know, is basically a JavaScript framework that, if I'm not wrong, Facebook or some other big companies they are using, right? So basically, it just allows you to code different components, like what you see over here, right? Like this part can be one component, this part can be one component, and it can pull data data from several other sources, right? So obviously all these are their own internal data or data that the different exchanges or the different coins provide. They're able to pull all these real-time numbers and data, and you would have to use more advanced JavaScript framework like React along with a little bit of HTML and CSS. So honestly, I'm a real beginner, right? I'm not a front-end coder by profession or anything. I am an SEO, which is a search engine optimization specialist by trade. So I'm not a front-end programmer by trade, but I do have some knowledge on programming here and there, just bit and pieces. So you could say that I'm kind of like a noob in the programming space. I prompt it to use React, create the components. So again, keywords matters because you will need to know what keywords you should use in order to get it to better give you an answer that's closer to what you want, right? So I also got it to create the API connections, and then I want to fill in the gap for the API keys, and all the endpoints and things like that later on. So it understood what I want and it gave me a guide to set it up. And it's really easy, right? So all you need to do is just copy and paste all these into your code editor. Of course, you will still need some form of basic knowledge on, like, at the very least, how to use like things like VS Code or maybe your command prompt and things like that, right? Just to install the React environment. They even tell me how to structure my folders, right? Which is insane because honestly, I wouldn't know what the files are and I wouldn't know how to where should I even put my JavaScript files, right? So it tells me how to do it and it just gives me the entire code. Obviously, this code is just a very high-level basic function, but it should work, right? And it gave me a guide on how to set up the API connection as well, which I just copy and paste. In the beginning, it might not turn out well, so I actually did it and I ran it. It doesn't look good. There's a lot of errors, so I continue prompting for it. And as you can see over here, like I say, I'm a beginner. I didn't know how to integrate the API, right? So it tells me how to install it and how to integrate it. I just follow it step by step, and just through this one iteration and experience, right, I've actually learned many things. I've learned how to organize my folders. I've learned how to set up my very basic API JS files, right? And they teach me how to handle my API key safely. So let's say if I put it into GitHub right now, nobody can actually take my API key. So what I like about this is that it just takes context from my previous generation and my previous prompts, and it gave me the answer based on that, which is perfect, right? Yeah, so I'm going to cut this short, but it ended somewhere where I ran the code and it looked really basic and it looked really raw, right? It looked really bad. Yeah, it looked something like that with a lot of errors. Obviously, there are errors because I couldn't connect the API properly. There's nothing wrong with the code because if there's something wrong with the code, this whole entire interface will not even show up, right? So you can see that it shows up, but it's not able to pull the information from CoinMarketCap because I didn't set up the API correctly. This is how it looks, right, on the first run, right? And it looks terrible, okay? I'm expecting it to have tables and stuff, but I was wrong, right? So I keep asking it for the tables. I pasted in the tables and stuff, but it didn't work, right? So I then re-prompt it again with the example and so on, because at this point in time, I thought maybe the context window has ended and it has forgotten my image, right? So I reattached it again and it just went on, right? So it improved over time and the end result I got is something like that. So after going through a whole long process with the AI, I managed to at least get the navigation up, right? I've got this top portion and the navigation here as well, right? Along with the login and sign up. These network errors actually are represented by these these three square boxes and also the table below. So you can see here that this is actually in a table format and it is a replica of what you see over here, right? Obviously, it's still a work in progress. I have stopped the prompt. I might just return back later and continue prompting because it is improving. I can see that it's improving. I can see that whenever I continue prompting, it's starting to understand what I want and it's able to give me the correct code which I have implemented. Obviously, if you have a little bit more programming knowledge, this will be a walk in the park, right? And not only that, the best part is whenever I have met with an error, all you need to do, copy the error, paste it inside here, it will tell you how to solve it and it might even correct your code if they realize that there's something wrong. Okay, so through this one experience, I kind of learned a little bit more about React. I just haven't figured out the API stuff yet. That could also be because I'm using the free account and I technically don't have the permissions to actually pull some of these data. But it's still in work in progress and I only did these like within 15 to 20 minutes of prompting. All it takes is no more than 30 minutes and I've created something like that. So to me, it's already mind-blowing. I'm not sure about you, but you can feel free to try it out yourself. So the last one that I did was to simplify things for me, right? So just a little bit of context. Recently, I've been exploring other large language models and I came across this thing called a streaming large language model, the streaming LLM. So it's a new large language model that uses a certain technique to compute or to process a huge amount of text as compared to the usual other large language models. A lot of times when they process a large amount of text, they either get stuck somewhere or they get, they are met with errors, right? Or they are very slow. So this particular one actually speeds things up and it's able to read a huge chunk of text. So I've been exploring this, and honestly, I've seen the different authors talking about it on Twitter. I totally don't understand a single thing that they are saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. So what I did is I just took a screenshot of the picture that I'm trying to paint over here, which is the different ways, different techniques of how they compute or process the data, right? So I just put it into ChatGPT, screenshot, and I get it to explain this image in layman terms. So guess what? This explanation is really wonderful because they gave me a lot of analogies and it simplified everything for me, right? So like, for example, this dense attention, it tells me that, okay, think of it like a dense forest where every tree can interact with every tree, okay? Not just that, right? It tells me how it works. Now, I don't really care about the mechanism, but the pros and cons is that it's thorough but inefficient, right? Especially for longer text. It's reading like the entire book every time you want to understand one sentence. So yeah, that's very inefficient because you need to read the whole entire book just to understand one sentence, right? So it doesn't make sense. And then moving on to the second one, which is window attention, it tells me that, oh, it's like looking through a narrow window and only seeing a few trees at a time. Okay, so it's more efficient than dense attention because you're only looking at a fewer words, right? So it takes less time because there are lesser words and you only look at those words. However, that's also the downside, right? Because if you look at lesser words and you want to find something outside of that window that you have never seen before, it will not even consider that, right? So which may lead to misunderstanding or probably errors, right? Or misinformation. So yeah, I won't go through the rest, but of this, it is good enough to know that ChatGPT is able to provide better context and explain very difficult stuff through the image, right? They understand the image and they can come back to me with a very simplified version of the explanation. Okay, but just a quick caveat, I do not know if this information are facts or are something that they have created out. Okay, I do not know if they really understand this for processing techniques. Like I say, everything that ChatGPT or AI gives you today, we have to still take it with a pinch of salt, do our own due diligence to fact check. But for this example, I didn't fact check. It just makes sense to me because I've been reading a lot on the tweets that the authors are actually putting out, right? And if you connect the dots, it does make some sense. But in any case, I'm just trying to demonstrate here the power of how ChatGPT can now really look at images. And of course, moving forward, you would be able to use your phone, take pictures, and they can even respond to you in a voice, right? So it's becoming like your Siri, is becoming like your Iron Man's Jarvis, right? And it's just mind-blowing. Right, so yeah, so basically these are all the examples that I've tested. With that in mind, I would like to move on to our last and final conclusion section, which is just to talk a little bit about its impact. Alright, so now that we have seen ChatGPT multimodal in action, I just want to quickly dive straight into the AI conundrum. The progression of AI is simultaneously awe-inspiring and unsettling. Now, if we strip away all the dazzle of AI advancements, we are now faced with two undeniable issues: the looming threat it poses to our livelihoods and the quest for potential solutions. The central concern: will AI snatch our jobs? I think this is one question that has definitely came across your mind. Now, here's my take, right? I don't think it will directly snatch our jobs, but the playing field is definitely changing. For clarity, let's look back a few years. Businesses needed specialized writers for technical pieces, which is a premium service at that time. Today, with just $20 and a ChatGPT Plus, the same task can be outsourced to someone else with less expertise, sometimes even without knowing it's AI-generated content. The bar has been lowered, making it more competitive. As a creator, AI enables me to offer quality services more affordably. Conversely, you might unknowingly pay more for content AI could produce cheaply. The takeaway: it is not that specialized roles will disappear overnight, but the competition is fiercer. Refuse to adapt and you're risking obsolescence. The stakes: high-level pros resistant to change, junior employees in efficiency-driven firms, senior staff lacking creativity will be hit the hardest. The remedy: integrate AI into your routine, keep abreast of developments and harness AI to produce double the output. Complacency is the real enemy. Remember, we often don't know what we don't know. Adopting AI tools and staying updated ensures we aren't caught off guard by the next big shift. And this is exactly why I've started this channel, right? To ensure that we all remain AI literate. To echo Frank Oppenheimer, the best way to learn is to teach, which is why I aim to keep my finger on the AI pulse, apply it to work as much as I can, and share insights with you all. Wrapping up, if you find this insightful, do hit the like button and subscribe. On a side note, I do also notice that the new ChatGPT functions seems to be quite isolated. Current limitations means that I can't use ADA with Bing for internet access or plugins with the image upload function. I don't know if you realize that, but I trust it will improve in the future. Upcoming videos will delve deeper into the AI limitations, so stay tuned for that and stay safe.